So this time around I want to create some pages for my site, and I don't want to create them as Golang templates right away. I want to create a page or two, make sure they look more or less like I want them to look, and then I'll convert them to Golang templates. And one of the things I'm going to have on my page, or on my pages on my site that I don't have right now, are images. So I'm looking right now at our roots file, and you might notice that although I can get to the home page right here, and I can get to the about page right here, if I look at the actual templates and I go to, say, the home page, and I try to put an image in here, and what I'll do is just go find an image. Well, actually, I'll just go over to here and say images.google.com, and I'll look for a house. I'm not going to use this image for anything in particular, but there's the house. So let's view that image right here and save the image. I will save it. Save image as, and I'll call it, well, I'll leave the name alone and I'll make it house. Try that again. Save image as. What format is this already? Yeah, okay, I'll just save it on the desktop. I'll save it in my project file. So I'll find my files, which are in here, up one level, Visual Studio Code, which is right here, bookings, and I'll create a new folder inside of bookings, okay, called static. This is where I'm going to put all my static images and inside all static files. And inside of that, I'll create a folder called images, and then I'll save that file. Okay, so I have that file. If I go back to my IDE, there it is. That's an awfully long name to type, so I'm just going to refactor that, rename it to house.jpg. There, okay. I have this file. How am I going to display this here? Well, typically in HTML, which I'm going to talk about in more detail shortly, so don't panic, I could put image source equals, and then that's in a folder called static. But how do I get to that folder? Well, I can put, let's try putting /static/images/house.jpg, height equals, and it figures that out for me, width equals, and it figures that out for me. There, okay. If I save this and try running my project, go run command web_star.go, compiles okay. It runs. If I go back to my web browser and try going to localhost 8080, you'll see that that image, it can't find it. It has no way of knowing where to load that image. And that's something we haven't done yet. We haven't actually put in, let me close this and go back to here. We haven't actually told it how to find our folder where we're going to put our static files. And we do that in our roots file. So I'm going to quit the application. And just before I return my mux, I'm going to create a file server, a place to go get static files from. File server, which is just a variable name, is assigned the value of, and this fortunately, like so many other things to do with the web, is built right into Go, http.fileserver, and it wants a directory. And I can't just type in the directory, I have to give it in a format that file server wants, because if you look at the signature for this, it actually wants a root file system and it returns a handler. So to get a root file system, we use http.dir. And then we give it the path name to our static files, which is going to be dot, meaning the root level of my application, slash static. And then I'm going to put a trailing slash on it too, which it expects to find. So now that I've created that file server, I actually have to use it. And I just tell my multiplexer, mux, we're going to handle, and we're going to look for the path name /static, and then star means anything in that directory. And then we go http.strip prefix, which takes the URL that Go gets and modifies it from what the web server requests or the web client requests into something that it knows how to handle. And we just strip out /static and use file server, which we just created. Now that I've done that, I can actually recompile my application. And hopefully, if I did everything correctly, when I go back to my web browser and open that window again, http://localhost:8080, it should load that picture. It's way too big, but now I have a means of putting pictures or JavaScript files that you'll be learning about shortly, or CSS files, which we'll be looking at shortly. We have a means of getting them from our local file system into some format that the web server or the web application knows how to work with. All right, so first thing I'm going to do is go back and get rid of what's on my homepage HTML, and I'm not going to delete it. This is where I'm going to use Git for the very first time. I am going to, in Visual Studio Code is probably a little different, but we'll look at that in a moment. Here I can just say, right-click on my file, go to Git, and choose Rollback. And it will say, what do you want to roll back? Yes, that's what I want to roll back. I roll back, and it reverts it back to the last version pushed or committed to Git. And that's really, really helpful, especially when you do something that is, kind of goofy and you want to just get rid of it and go back to the last known working version. Git is your friend. In the same way, this house image I'm not going to use. But what I am going to use, and I'll put these on the course resources page for this site, are a few images that I've already downloaded. And I have them downloaded right here. And these are pictures that we're going to use at the top of our homepage. And they look like this. There's a nice picture of a house. There's a nice tray with coffee, and those look like they could be chocolates, I'm not sure. And then someone drinking while looking really, really comfortable, drinking coffee. All right, I want these images available to my web application. So I come into here, I find my users, TCS, Visual Studio Code projects, bookings, the static folder I just created, images, and I will put those images right in here. So I'll take them and copy them into that folder. So they're in there. Now when I go back to my IDE, you'll see there they are, not added to Git. I will simply add them to Git. There's a keyboard shortcut that I use, Cloverleaf Option A, or I could just right click on it and choose Add to Git. They've been added. I will now commit, which in Visual Studio Code is done by going to the VCS menu. I use the keyboard shortcut and bringing up VCS operations pop up. And I will commit, and I will push. Commit and push. Oh, needs a message. Adding images. Commit and push. And it wants me to review them, or I'll just commit and push. Off they go. So they have been pushed, and now they are part of my Git repository once the push finishes. So now I have a means of actually serving static files. So that's quite helpful. That means I can actually start building things as straight HTML pages and then converting them to templates later on when I want to treat them as nothing more than Golang templates. So in the next lecture, we'll start creating some actual pages, and away we go.